The wedding photo mocked Emma from across the living room, its silver frame catching the dying afternoon light like a cruel wink from the universe. In it, her sister Sophia smiled, with a brightness that now seemed impossible, wrapped in the arms of a man who had slowly been killing that light for 3 years. Emma's hands trembled as she held the burner phone, the screen glowing with a single unsent message that would destroy everything her sister believed in. "I can't do this," she whispered to the empty apartment, but even as the words left her lips, she knew it was a lie. She had to do this. Because last Tuesday, when Sophia had shown up at her door at 2 a.m. with a black eye poorly concealed under drugstore makeup and a practiced smile that didn't reach her trembling lips, Emma had made a decision that would brand her as the villain in everyone's story, except the one that mattered: her sister's survival. The message on the phone was simple, devastatingly so. "Meet me at the Riverside Hotel, room 304, come alone. We need to finish what we started." It would go to Sophia's phone, carefully timed to arrive when Emma knew her sister would be having lunch with their mother. Sophia would see it. She would recognize the number, saved in her contacts under a name that would make her blood run cold. Marcus's mistress. Except there was no mistress. There was only Emma, about to step into a role that would make her sister hate her, possibly forever. But hate was better than dead, and Emma had seen the progression clearly over the past 18 months. The controlling behavior that started as concern, the isolation disguised as devotion, the bruises explained away as clumsiness. Marcus Thornton was a textbook abuser, and he was escalating. Emma had researched it obsessively, staying up until dawn, reading case studies and survivor stories, her laptop screen burning her eyes as she traced the pattern that always ended the same way if no one intervened. Statistics said that when an abusive partner started strangling their victim, the likelihood of eventual murder increased by 750%. Last month, Sophia had worn turtlenecks for 2 weeks straight, in July. Emma had tried everything else first. She had suggested couples therapy, and Marcus had smiled his charming smile and said, "We don't need strangers interfering in our marriage, do we, Sophie?" She had tried to talk to Sophia directly, and her sister had defended him with the desperate loyalty of someone who had been gaslit into believing she was the problem. "You just don't understand him like I do, Em. He's under so much stress at work. I shouldn't have pushed his buttons." Pushed his buttons. As if existing while female was somehow provocative behavior. Emma had tried talking to their mother, but Margaret Wilson lived in a fantasy world where nice boys from good families with respectable jobs didn't hurt women. Marcus. "Oh, honey, you must be mistaken. He's always been so polite. Maybe Sophia just needs to be more supportive of his career. Marriage takes work, you know." Their father had died when Emma was 16 and Sophia was 18, and their mother had never quite recovered from the loss. She clung to the idea of Sophia's perfect marriage like a life raft in a storm of grief. Emma couldn't destroy that illusion without proof that would shatter Sophia's denial too. So she had conceived a plan so manipulative, so cruel, that even thinking about it made her stomach turn. She would become the other woman. Not actually, of course. The affair would be entirely fictional, a performance crafted from fake text messages, staged photographs, and carefully planted evidence. Emma had spent 3 weeks building the character of Melissa Carter, a pharmaceutical sales rep who had allegedly met Marcus at a medical conference in Boston 6 months ago. She had created email accounts, social media profiles, even a fake LinkedIn with a professional headshot purchased from a stock photo website. She had generated months of text message history between Melissa and Marcus's number, everything from flirty exchanges to explicit messages, all fabricated but devastatingly believable. The messages would never actually go to Marcus. Emma had set up a sophisticated forwarding system that would intercept any replies before he ever saw them. To Marcus, nothing would seem amiss. But to Sophia, it would look like undeniable proof of betrayal. The affair needed to be discovered in stages, each revelation more damning than the last. First, the text message that would ping Sophia's radar. Then, if Emma's sister did what she predicted, Sophia would check Marcus's phone, where she would find carefully edited screenshots and saved contacts. Emma had even planned to plant a receipt from the Riverside Hotel, dated for nights when Marcus had claimed to be working late. She had studied her brother-in-law's patterns for months, noting his genuine late nights at the hospital where he worked as a cardiovascular surgeon, his actual business trips, his real schedule. She would weave the fake affair into the gaps of his real life so seamlessly that it would be impossible to disprove without revealing how carefully Emma had studied him. The cruelest part, the part that kept Emma awake with guilt, was that she would have to play the role in person. If Sophia confronted Marcus and he denied everything convincingly, as Emma knew he would, then her sister might believe him. Abusers were excellent liars, and Marcus had charm that could convince anyone of anything. So Emma had rented the hotel room. She had purchased a wig, auburn instead of her natural black, and contact lenses to change her dark brown eyes to green. She had bought clothing completely unlike her usual style, tight and provocative, the kind of outfit that would photograph well and seem like exactly what a mistress would wear. When Sophia inevitably followed the breadcrumbs to that hotel room, Emma would be there, in costume, playing the role of the woman destroying her sister's marriage. She had rehearsed the scene 100 times in her mind. The moment Sophia burst through the door, expecting to find her husband with another woman. The shock on Emma's face would be genuine, even if the affair wasn't. She would let Sophia see Melissa, let her sister's rage and betrayal focus on this fictional woman, this tangible villain. And then, in the chaos of that moment, Emma would make sure Marcus wasn't there. She had timed it perfectly. She knew Marcus had a surgery scheduled that afternoon that always ran long. He wouldn't be reachable. He wouldn't be able to explain or manipulate or charm his way out of what Sophia was seeing. Emma's phone buzzed, pulling her from her spiral of thoughts. A text from Sophia. "Having lunch with Mom. She's asking about you. When are you coming to visit?" The normalcy of it was jarring. In Sophia's world right now, everything was fine. She had no idea that in approximately 45 minutes, Emma would send the text message that would begin the unraveling of her marriage. Emma's thumbs hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to text back something meaningful, something that would serve as an apology for what was coming. But she couldn't. Any deviation from normal behavior might alert Sophia that something was wrong. "Maybe next weekend," Emma typed, each word feeling like a small betrayal. "Love you." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "Love you too, sis." Emma set down her phone and picked up the burner one. The message was still there, waiting to be sent. Her reflection stared back at her from the darkened screen, and she barely recognized the woman looking back. When had she become someone capable of this level of deception? But then she remembered Sophia's hollow laugh last Tuesday, the way her sister had flinched when Emma moved too quickly to hug her, the rehearsed explanation about falling down the stairs that had clearly been fed to her by Marcus. She remembered being 17, watching Sophia graduate high school as valedictorian, so brilliant and full of potential. She remembered Sophia's acceptance to MIT, her plans to become an engineer, the way she used to talk about changing the world. And then she remembered Sophia at 22, dropping out of college in her senior year because Marcus had convinced her that his career as a surgeon needed to come first, that they couldn't both be ambitious, that a wife's role was to support her husband's success. She remembered watching her sister shrink, year by year, smile by smile, dream by dream, until the woman who remained was a ghost of who she had been. Emma opened the messaging app on the burner phone. Her finger hovered over the send button. Once she pressed it, there was no going back. Sophia would see the message. She would feel the betrayal cut through her like a knife. She would believe that her husband, the man she had sacrificed everything for, had been cheating on her. She would believe that her own sister had knowledge of it and had kept it secret. Because that was the other part of Emma's plan. She would have to let Sophia hate her. When the confrontation happened at the hotel, Emma couldn't reveal the truth. If Sophia knew the affair was fake, she might forgive Marcus, might convince herself it was all a misunderstanding, might fall back into the cycle of abuse with even less support than before. No, Emma had to let her sister believe that she, Emma, had known about the affair and had been helping Marcus cover it up. She had created evidence of that too. Fake text messages between her real number and Melissa, messages where Emma allegedly advised the mistress on how to avoid getting caught, messages that would portray Emma as complicit and cruel. Sophia would find those messages too. She would hate Emma for the betrayal. And that hate, Emma hoped, would be the catalyst that finally gave her sister the strength to leave. Because in Emma's experience, victims of abuse often found it easier to leave when they were angry than when they were afraid. Fear paralyzed, rage mobilized. If Sophia was furious at both Marcus and Emma, if she felt betrayed by the two people closest to her, she might finally access the anger she had been suppressing for 3 years. She might finally fight back. And once she left Marcus, once she was safe and had some distance, Emma could reveal the truth. She could show her sister the planning documents, the fake accounts, the carefully constructed deception. Sophia might still never forgive her. Emma had made peace with that possibility, but at least Sophia would be alive to hate her. The clock on Emma's wall ticked forward. 2:47 p.m. In 13 minutes, Sophia's lunch with their mother would be ending. The message needed to be sent at exactly 3 p.m. for maximum impact. Emma stood and walked to her bedroom, where the auburn wig and green contacts waited on her dresser, alongside the trashy outfit and the hotel key card. She looked at her reflection in the mirror, memorizing her real face, wondering if this was the last time she would see herself as the good sister, the supportive one, the one Sophia trusted. After today, she would be the villain, the sister who betrayed her, the woman who had helped destroy her marriage. Emma picked up the wig and began to pin her hair back. As she transformed into Melissa Carter, she thought about sacrifice. Real sacrifice wasn't noble or beautiful. It was ugly and brutal, and it left scars that never fully healed. But sometimes love demanded it anyway. Sometimes saving someone meant becoming their enemy. Sometimes the only way to pull someone from quicksand was to give them something solid to push against, even if that solid thing was your own heart. At 2:59, Emma, now fully transformed into Melissa, picked up the burner phone one final time. She read the message again. "Meet me at the Riverside Hotel, room 304. Come alone. We need to finish what we started." Her finger pressed send. The message delivered with a soft whoosh sound that felt far too gentle for something so destructive. And just like that, Emma Wilson became the villain in her sister's story, a role she would play perfectly until Sophia was finally safe. Sophia Wilson Thornton felt her phone vibrate against the restaurant table just as her mother was launching into another story about Mrs. Henderson's daughter's recent engagement. She glanced down reflexively, expecting a message from Marcus about his surgery schedule, or maybe Emma confirming their weekend plans. Instead, she saw a number she recognized with a sickening drop in her stomach. The number was saved in her contacts as Dr. Morrison's office, a pediatrician she had called once when researching doctors for the children she and Marcus had been planning to have. Except she knew, with a certainty that made her hands go cold, that Dr. Morrison's office had never sent her text messages before. They called or emailed, always. Her mother's voice faded to white noise as Sophia opened the message. The words blurred, then sharpened, then blurred again as her brain tried to reject what she was reading. "Meet me at the Riverside Hotel, room 304. Come alone. We need to finish what we started." For a moment, Sophia couldn't breathe. The restaurant suddenly felt too hot, too crowded, too loud. Her mother's hand touched her arm. "Honey, are you all right? You've gone completely pale." Sophia forced herself to smile. That practiced smile she had perfected over the last year. The one that said everything was fine, even when her world was crumbling. "I'm okay, Mom. Just felt dizzy for a second. I think I need some air." Margaret Wilson's face creased with concern, but Sophia was already standing, grabbing her purse, murmuring excuses about the heat and needing to splash cold water on her face. She made it to the restaurant bathroom before her hands started shaking so badly she could barely hold her phone. The message was still there, stark and damning on her screen. She stared at it until the words stopped making sense as individual letters and became just a blur of betrayal. Marcus was having an affair. The knowledge settled over her like a heavy blanket, suffocating and undeniable. Part of her had suspected, hadn't she? Those late nights that had become more frequent. The way he had become even more controlling, as if projecting his own guilt onto her. The new cologne he had started wearing 3 months ago. The way he sometimes smelled like perfume he claimed came from hugging a colleague. But suspecting and knowing were two entirely different countries, and Sophia had just been forcibly deported from denial into devastating certainty. Her phone was still in her hand, and without really thinking about it, she opened her messages with Marcus. Her fingers moved automatically, muscle memory from years of checking in, of reporting her location, of asking permission. "How's the surgery going?" she typed, then deleted it. What was the point? If he was having an affair, he was probably with her right now, or planning to meet her. The text said, "Finish what we started." What did that mean? How long had this been going on? Sophia's mind raced backward through the last 6 months, re-examining every late night, every unexplained absence, every time Marcus had accused her of being paranoid or jealous. Had he been gaslighting her about the affair too? Making her feel crazy for suspecting what was actually true? She thought about Emma, about the way her sister had been acting strange lately, more protective, more insistent that Sophia visit her apartment instead of having Emma come to their house. Emma had been asking pointed questions about Marcus, about their marriage, questions that Sophia had deflected because admitting the truth to her baby sister felt like admitting failure. Did Emma know? The thought hit Sophia like a physical blow. Had Emma known about the affair and not told her? No, Emma wouldn't do that. Emma was the one person Sophia trusted absolutely. Except a small voice whispered in the back of her mind. Emma had been acting weird, secretive. And she had stopped asking about Marcus as directly about a month ago, right around the time the affair must have started getting serious if they were texting about finishing what they started. Sophia splashed cold water on her face, watching her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Her makeup was smudging, her eyes were red, and she looked exactly like what she was, a woman whose life was falling apart. Behind her, the bathroom door opened and 2 women walked in, laughing about something. Sophia straightened, forced her face back into neutral, and walked out. Her mother was waiting at the table, credit card already out to pay the bill. "Feel better, sweetie?" "Much better," Sophia lied. "Actually, Mom, I just remembered I need to pick up Marcus's dry cleaning before 5. Do you mind if we cut this short?" Margaret looked disappointed but nodded. "Of course, dear. You're such a good wife, always thinking of Marcus's needs. That man is lucky to have you." The irony was so sharp, it could have drawn blood. Sophia hugged her mother goodbye and walked to her car on autopilot. Once inside, she sat in the driver's seat and pulled out her phone again. The message was still there. She read it 5 more times, looking for any alternative explanation, any way it could be innocent. There wasn't one. The Riverside Hotel was downtown, about 20 minutes away. Room 304. "Come alone. We need to finish what we started." Every word was designed for secrecy, for an affair. Sophia should go home. She should wait for Marcus to finish his surgery and confront him directly. That would be the rational thing to do. But rationality had left the building around the same time her hands had started shaking. And in its place was something else. Rage. pure, white-hot rage that she hadn't allowed herself to feel in so long that it almost felt like meeting a stranger. For 3 years, she had made herself small. She had walked on eggshells. She had excused his behavior, believed his lies, convinced herself that the problem was her own sensitivity, her own inadequacy as a wife. And all that time, he had been cheating on her. Sophia started her car and drove toward downtown, toward the Riverside Hotel, toward confirmation of what she already knew in her bones. She wasn't thinking clearly, she knew that, but she didn't care. She needed to see it with her own eyes. She needed to catch him in the act so he couldn't talk his way out of it with his smooth surgeon's voice and his practiced explanations. Traffic was light for a Wednesday afternoon. Sophia made it to the hotel in 18 minutes, parking in the garage with hands that had stopped shaking and started feeling numb instead. The lobby was upscale but not ostentatious, the kind of place where business people had affairs and convinced themselves it didn't count because it was classy. Sophia walked past the front desk without making eye contact, heading straight for the elevators. No one stopped her. Why would they? She looked like she belonged, just another well-dressed woman meeting someone in one of the rooms. The elevator ride to the 3rd floor lasted an eternity and a second simultaneously. Sophia watched the numbers climb and felt completely disconnected from her body, like she was watching herself from a distance, a character in a movie who was about to discover her husband's betrayal. The hallway was carpeted in burgundy, lined with identical doors bearing brass numbers. Sophia walked down it slowly, reading each number until she reached 304. She stood outside the door for a long moment, her hand raised to knock, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Behind this door was the truth. Behind this door was the woman Marcus had chosen over her. Behind this door was the end of her marriage. Sophia knocked. The sound seemed impossibly loud in the quiet hallway. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then she heard movement inside, footsteps approaching the door. The lock clicked. The door opened. The woman standing in the doorway was beautiful in a way that made Sophia's stomach clench. Auburn hair fell in waves over her shoulders. Green eyes widened in apparent shock. She was wearing a tight red dress that showed curves Sophia didn't have, and for one devastating moment, Sophia understood exactly why Marcus had wanted her. Then the woman's shock turned to confusion, and she said, "Can I help you?" In a voice that sounded vaguely familiar, but wrong somehow, like a recording played at the wrong speed. Sophia found her voice, though it came out harder than she expected, sharpened by rage and pain. "I'm Marcus Thornton's wife, and I think you know exactly why I'm here." The woman's face went through a series of expressions too quickly for Sophia to catalog. Shock, fear, something that might have been guilt. She stepped back from the door, her hand going to her throat in a gesture that seemed almost theatrical. "I can explain," the woman said, but Sophia was already pushing past her into the hotel room, looking for evidence, for Marcus, for something tangible to confirm what she already knew. The room was generic, hotel standard, with a queen bed and a desk and a window overlooking the parking garage. It was empty except for the two of them. No Marcus. Sophia spun to face the other woman. "Where is he?" "He's not here," the woman said, and there was something off about her voice, something Sophia couldn't quite place. "Are you Melissa Carter?" Sophia demanded. She hadn't planned to know the name, but as soon as she said it, she realized it must be saved in Marcus's phone somehow, must be the name attached to this number. The woman hesitated for just a fraction too long before nodding. "Yes. Look, Mrs. Thornton, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Sophia's voice rose. "You texted my husband asking him to meet you at a hotel room, and you think it's a misunderstanding?" "I didn't text your husband," Melissa said, but even as the words left her mouth, she seemed to realize how absurd they sounded given the context. Sophia pulled out her phone and showed her the message. "This is your number. You texted him. Meet me at the Riverside Hotel, room 304. Come alone. We need to finish what we started. What exactly did you start with, my husband? Melissa looked at the phone, and something flickered across her face that Sophia couldn't read. Pain, regret, fear. Mrs. Thornton, I know how this looks, but I need you to listen to me. Your husband is not a good man. The words hit Sophia like a slap. Of course Marcus wasn't a good man. She knew that better than anyone. But hearing it from his mistress, hearing this woman who had slept with her husband try to justify the affair by vilifying him, was too much. Don't, Sophia said, her voice shaking with rage. Don't you dare try to make yourself the victim here. You knew he was married. You chose to sleep with him anyway. Whatever Marcus is or isn't, that doesn't excuse what you did. I never slept with him, Melissa said, and there was something desperate in her voice now. Sophia, please, I need you to listen. I'm not who you think I am. This isn't what you think it is. Stop lying, Sophia shouted, and she was crying now, hot tears of rage and betrayal streaming down her face. Just stop lying. I'm so tired of everyone lying to me. I'm so tired of being treated like I'm stupid, like I don't see what's right in front of me. Melissa took a step toward her, hands raised in what might have been a placating gesture, but Sophia backed away. Don't touch me. Don't come near me. Sophia, please, Melissa said, and her voice cracked on the name. I'm trying to help you. Marcus is dangerous. He's been hurting you, hasn't he? That's what this is about. I'm trying to help you leave him. The words were so unexpected, so precisely targeted at Sophia's deepest secret, that for a moment she couldn't respond. How did this woman know about the abuse? Had Marcus told her? Had he shared intimate details of their marriage with his mistress, complained about his difficult wife who made him so angry he had to hit her? The thought made Sophia feel sick. You don't know anything about my marriage, Sophia said, but the words came out weak, unconvincing even to her own ears. I know more than you think, Melissa said, and she reached up to her face, her hands going to her eyes. Sophia watched in confusion as the woman pulled something from her eyes, green contact lenses that she dropped on the desk. When she looked back at Sophia, her eyes were dark brown. Familiar brown. Impossibly familiar. Melissa's hands went to her hair next, fingers finding the edge of what Sophia now realized was a wig. As the auburn hair came off, revealing black hair pinned underneath, Sophia's brain refused to process what she was seeing. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be. But as the woman in front of her began to look less like Melissa Carter and more like someone else, someone Sophia knew better than almost anyone in the world, reality crashed over her in a wave of vertigo. Emma, Sophia whispered, the name catching in her throat. Her sister stood before her in a tight red dress and smudged makeup, no longer trying to hide her identity, her face a mixture of grief and determination. I'm so sorry, Emma said, and her voice was her own now, no longer trying to sound like someone else. I'm so sorry, but you have to leave him, Sophia, and I knew you wouldn't unless you thought he betrayed you first. Sophia looked at her sister's outstretched hand, those ridiculous fake nails still attached as part of the Melissa Carter costume, and something inside her shifted like tectonic plates, rearranging the landscape of her entire life. This was it, the moment where everything changed. She could walk away right now, go home to Marcus, delete that text message from her phone, and pretend this entire nightmare had never happened. She could slip back into the familiar horror of her marriage, back into the careful choreography of survival she had perfected over 3 years. Or she could take Emma's hand and step into the terrifying unknown. The unknown stretched before her like an abyss. No plan, no safety net, no guarantee of what came next. But as Sophia sat there on the edge of that hotel bed, looking at her sister who had just revealed the most elaborate, insane, desperate act of love Sophia had ever witnessed, she realized something profound. Staying was more terrifying than leaving. Staying meant more bruises, more lies, more of herself disappearing until there was nothing left but a ghost in her own skin. Staying meant that one day, Marcus's hands around her throat wouldn't let go. Staying meant dying, whether quickly or slowly. Sophia reached out and took Emma's hand. Her sister's fingers closed around hers immediately, warm and solid and real. And for the first time since walking into this hotel room, Sophia felt like she could actually breathe without her chest constricting in panic. "Okay," Sophia whispered, her voice shaking but determined. "Okay, let's go." Emma's eyes filled with tears of relief. She grabbed her purse and shoved the auburn wig inside along with the green contacts, stuffing away the evidence of her deception like she was burying a body. They walked out of that hotel room together, and Sophia didn't look back at room 304, didn't let herself hesitate or second-guess. In the elevator, surrounded by mirrors that reflected two sisters who looked nothing alike and everything alike at the same time, Sophia asked the question that had been burning in her mind. How much of it was fake? The affair evidence? Emma took a deep breath. All of it, every single thing. The social media profiles for Melissa Carter going back 2 years, the email accounts, the text message history between her and Marcus that I fabricated, the fake hotel receipts I created, the restaurant charges I was ready to plant in his credit card statements. Marcus has never met Melissa Carter because Melissa Carter doesn't exist. She's a ghost I created to haunt your marriage. That's actually brilliant, Sophia said. And then she laughed because what else could she do? The absurdity of complimenting her sister's elaborate catfishing scheme was too much. In a completely insane, possibly illegal way, that's genius. I learned from the best, Emma said softly. You always told me I was good at research projects. Remember when I did that presentation in high school about psychological manipulation in cults? Turns out that research was more useful than I expected. They drove separately to Emma's apartment, Sophia following her sister's taillights through the downtown traffic like they were a lifeline, tethering her to sanity. At every red light, Sophia's hand hovered over her phone, the muscle memory of 3 years of conditioning screaming at her to text Marcus, to check in, to explain her whereabouts, to apologize for not being home to cook dinner. The impulse was so deeply ingrained, it felt like biological instinct, like breathing or blinking. But each time her fingers moved toward the phone, Sophia forced herself to grip the steering wheel instead, knuckles white, jaw clenched. At Emma's apartment, her sister immediately started making tea, a ritual from their childhood when their mother would brew chamomile whenever they were upset or sick or scared. The familiar domestic gesture in the midst of chaos made something in Sophia's chest crack open. She sat on Emma's worn couch, the same couch where she had spent so many nights during college talking about their dreams and futures, and she finally let herself fall completely apart. The crying started as quiet tears and escalated into body-racking sobs that felt like they were being torn from somewhere deep inside her bones. She cried for everything she had lost over the past 3 years. Her education at MIT, abandoned in her senior year because Marcus had convinced her his career had to come first. Her dreams of becoming an engineer, of designing bridges and buildings, of creating something permanent and beautiful in the world. Her friendships systematically isolated until she had no one but Marcus. Her sense of self eroded so gradually she hadn't even noticed it disappearing until there was almost nothing left. Her safety, her autonomy, her right to exist without fear. Emma sat beside her and held her, not offering platitudes or trying to make it better, just being present in the grief. When the tears finally slowed to hiccups and shuddering breaths, Sophia asked the question that had been growing in her mind since the revelation. Did you really think I wouldn't leave him unless you did this? Did you have so little faith in me? Emma was quiet for a long moment, her hands still rubbing circles on Sophia's back like she used to do when they were children and Sophia had nightmares. When she finally spoke, her voice was careful, measured, like she was walking through a minefield of words. It wasn't about faith in you, Soph. It was about understanding how abuse works. After I saw that black eye, I spent 3 weeks doing nothing but research. I read survivor stories, psychology journals, case studies from domestic violence experts. Do you know what I learned? On average, it takes a victim 7 attempts to permanently leave an abusive relationship. 7 separate times of leaving and going back before they finally stay gone. And each time they return, statistically, the danger increases. The violence escalates. I didn't want to wait for you to attempt number 7. I didn't want to wait until you were a statistic, another woman whose family said they saw the signs, but didn't do enough. Sophia absorbed this information, feeling it settle over her like a heavy blanket. By making me think he cheated. By making you angry instead of only afraid, Emma corrected gently. Everything I read said the same thing. Victims of abuse leave when they access their anger. They stay when they're only operating from fear. Fear paralyzes, rage mobilizes. The moment you thought Marcus had betrayed you with another woman, I saw something in your face I haven't seen in 3 years. Real anger. Not the quiet resentment you've been carrying, but actual fury. That's what you needed to leave. Sophia recognized the truth in Emma's words. The second she had seen that text message, she had felt rage so pure it had cut through 3 years of conditioning like a hot knife through butter. That rage had gotten her into her car and driven her to this hotel. That rage had given her the courage to confront what she thought was her husband's mistress. Fear would have kept her home, making excuses, giving Marcus the benefit of the doubt he had never earned. "You're terrifying, you know that?" Sophia said, but there was no real accusation in it. When you decide to help someone, you go full supervillain with the master plans. Emma laughed, a sound that was half sob. I prefer anti-hero. Supervillains don't have good intentions. I had the best intentions. I just also had morally questionable execution. Sophia's phone rang, Marcus's name lighting up the screen. She stared at it, watching it vibrate in her hand, and felt her entire body tense, like a rabbit hearing a predator approach. Don't answer it, Emma said immediately. Not yet. Not until we have a plan, a lawyer, a strategy. But Sophia knew she had to answer. 3 years of conditioning couldn't be undone in an hour. If she didn't answer, Marcus would escalate. He would track her phone location, would show up wherever she was, would make a scene. She had learned that the hard way. The safest thing was to maintain the illusion of compliance while she figured out her next move. She took a deep breath that felt like swallowing glass and answered. Hi. Her voice came out steadier than she expected. Where are you? Marcus's voice was controlled, that dangerous calm that meant he was furious but hiding it under a veneer of reasonableness. Sophia had learned to read all his tones, all his moods, had become an expert in the language of his anger. I'm at Emma's apartment. I wasn't feeling well after lunch with Mom, so I came here to lie down for a bit. The lie flowed easily. 3 years of lying had made her an expert, had taught her exactly which excuses Marcus would accept. I'll come pick you up, Marcus said. And it wasn't a question. It was never a question with him. Everything was a command dressed up as concern. No! The word came out too sharp, too loud. Sophia forced herself to moderate her tone, to sound tired instead of terrified. No, it's okay. I'm actually feeling a bit better now. Emma and I were thinking of having a sister night, maybe ordering food and watching movies. I haven't spent quality time with her in so long. I'll be home tomorrow morning to make you breakfast. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long, Sophia wondered if the call had dropped. She could picture Marcus's face, could see him calculating, deciding how much control to exert, weighing whether this was a battle worth fighting, or if he should let her have this small rebellion so she'd be more compliant later. I don't like you being away overnight, Marcus finally said, his voice tight. We had plans for dinner. I expect you to be here for meals, Sophia. We've discussed this. I know, and I'm so sorry. I should have texted you earlier before making plans. It was inconsiderate of me." The apology tasted like ashes in her mouth, but she forced it out anyway. "I promise I'll make it up to you tomorrow. I'll cook your favorite breakfast and we can spend the whole day together." Another pause. Then, "Fine. But I expect you home first thing in the morning, 7 a.m. sharp. We need to have a serious conversation about you making decisions without consulting me first. This kind of behavior is unacceptable." The implied threat in his voice made Sophia's stomach clench with familiar dread, but she kept her voice sweet and compliant. "Of course, honey. I understand. I'll be home at 7. I love you." She ended the call before he could respond, and immediately powered off her phone completely, hands shaking so badly she almost dropped it. Emma was staring at her with an expression of horror and heartbreak. "Is that what it's always like? The way you have to talk to him?" Sophia nodded, suddenly exhausted. "That was actually one of the better conversations. At least he didn't yell or accuse me of lying or demand to talk to you to verify my story. Small victories." "Jesus Christ, Sophia." Emma looked like she might cry. "How did I not see how bad it was? How did you hide it so well?" "Because I got very good at hiding it," Sophia said simply. "And because people see what they want to see. Mom sees a successful surgeon who's good to her daughter. Your friends see a charming guy who seems devoted. No one looks close enough to see the control, the manipulation, the fear, and the physical stuff that's easy to hide with the right clothing and makeup." "He's going to be furious tomorrow when you don't come home," Emma said. "Let him be furious at an empty apartment," Sophia replied, and felt a spark of something dangerous and new kindling in her chest. "Because I'm not going back there. Ever. We need to call a lawyer tonight and figure out how to get my things from the house safely. We need to tell Mom before Marcus can spin the story his way. We need to move fast." Emma nodded, already pulling out her laptop. "I already have a list of divorce lawyers who specialize in domestic abuse cases. I made it 2 weeks ago, just in case you ever got to this point." Of course she did. Of course Emma had been planning this, preparing for the moment Sophia might finally be ready to leave. Her sister had always been the planner, the researcher, the one who prepared for every contingency. That night, while Emma researched lawyers and domestic violence resources, Sophia lay in the guest bedroom and stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Her mind raced through everything that would happen next. The divorce process, the confrontations with Marcus, telling their mother, facing the judgment from people who thought she was throwing away a perfectly good marriage. The logistics overwhelmed her, but underneath the anxiety was something else, something that felt almost like hope. Around 2 a.m, unable to sleep, Sophia found Emma still awake at her kitchen table, laptop open, surrounded by printed articles about divorce proceedings and restraining orders. "Can't sleep either?" Sophia asked. "I keep thinking about all the ways this could go wrong," Emma admitted. "Marcus isn't going to just let you leave quietly. He's going to fight. He's going to try to make you look unstable. He might even try to hurt you." "I know," Sophia said, sitting down across from her sister. "But I also know that staying would definitely kill me, either quickly or slowly. At least this way, I have a chance." They sat in silence for a moment. 2 sisters in the middle of the night, planning a war for one sister's freedom. "I need to know something," Sophia said. "The affair evidence you created. How detailed is it, really?" Emma pulled up files on her laptop, showing Sophia the full extent of her fabrication. Social media profiles for Melissa Carter going back years, with hundreds of posts and photos purchased from stock photography sites, email accounts with message histories, text message threads with timestamps and read receipts, hotel receipts, restaurant charges, even fake gifts Marcus had supposedly bought for his mistress. "I was going to plant all of this over the next few weeks," Emma explained. "Let you discover it piece by piece so it would be more believable. The hotel confrontation was just the first step." Sophia studied the evidence with growing appreciation for her sister's thoroughness. This is actually perfect, not for proving an affair that didn't happen, but as leverage. Marcus is going to try to paint me as a crazy wife, abandoning a good husband. But if I have apparent proof of infidelity, even if it's fake, it changes the entire narrative. I become the wronged wife leaving a cheater instead of the unstable woman leaving a saint. Emma's eyes widened. You want to actually use the fake evidence in the divorce? Why not? He can't prove it's fake without admitting he's been tracking and controlling every aspect of my life, which would make him look worse. The evidence you created is too detailed to easily disprove. It would require forensic investigation that would cost him more in legal fees than just settling quietly. And even if he tries to claim it's fabricated, the attempt makes him look guilty and defensive. It's perfect leverage. Emma stared at her sister with something like awe. When did you become so strategic and calculated? I learned from living with a manipulator for 3 years, Sophia said. I know how they think. I know how they operate. Marcus has spent years controlling the narrative of our marriage. It's time I control it instead. So we're really doing this? Using my fake affair as grounds for divorce? We're really doing this. And Emma? Sophia reached across the table and took her sister's hand. Thank you for being crazy enough to invent an imaginary mistress to save me. I'm still processing how I feel about the deception and the manipulation, but I understand why you did it. You gave me permission to be angry. You gave me a concrete reason to leave that felt bigger than my fear. You saved my life. Emma squeezed her sister's hand, tears streaming down her face. I would do it again. I would do anything to keep you safe. You're my sister, my only sister. I can't lose you to him. They sat there in Emma's kitchen as the night slowly turned toward dawn, planning the details of Sophia's escape, and for the first time in 3 years, Sophia felt like she was the author of her own story instead of a character in Marcus's narrative. The terror was still there, the uncertainty, the fear of what came next, but underneath it all was something stronger, the determination to survive. The rage that had been suppressed for so long, finally given permission to burn. And the love of a sister who had been willing to become the villain in everyone else's story, so that Sophia could finally become the hero of her own. The next morning arrived too quickly and too slowly at the same time. Sophia woke up in Emma's guest room at 6 a.m., her body conditioned to wake early enough to prepare Marcus's breakfast. Except this morning, she wasn't going home. This morning, she was calling a divorce lawyer instead. Patricia Chen's office opened at 8 a.m. Emma had already sent an email the night before requesting an emergency consultation, explaining the domestic violence situation in clinical, careful language. At 8:15, Patricia called them back. Her voice was professional but warm, the kind of voice that suggested she had heard stories like Sophia's 1,000 times and was never surprised by how bad they could get. I've reviewed your email, Patricia said after introductions. I want to start by saying you did the right thing by leaving. Strangulation is one of the strongest predictors of eventual homicide in domestic violence cases. You're not overreacting. You're surviving. The validation made Sophia's eyes burn with tears. For 3 years, Marcus had convinced her she was too sensitive, too dramatic, that the problem was her perception, not his behavior. Hearing a professional confirm that she was right to be afraid felt like being handed oxygen after years of slow suffocation. Patricia explained the divorce process with calm efficiency. Emergency protective order first, then filing for divorce, then negotiating the settlement. The fake affair evidence made Patricia pause. This is ethically complicated, she said carefully. But if we're being honest, it's also brilliant. Leverage. If he can't disprove it without exposing his own abusive behavior, we can use his inability to refute it in settlement negotiations. Most men in his position, especially professionals who depend on their reputation, would rather settle quickly and quietly than have an affair, real or fabricated, dragged through public court proceedings. By 9 a.m. they had a plan. By 10 a.m. Patricia had filed for an emergency protective order. By 11 a.m., Sophia's phone, which she had turned back on, started exploding with calls and texts from Marcus. She didn't answer. She let every call go to voicemail, and with each ignored ring, she felt a little bit more powerful. At noon, Marcus showed up at Emma's apartment building. Sophia watched from the window as he pounded on the building's main door, his face red with rage, his whole body radiating violence barely contained. Emma called the police immediately. "My sister has a protective order against her husband," she said into the phone, her voice shaking but clear. "He's currently violating it by being at her location. We need an officer here immediately." Marcus must have realized the police were coming because he left before they arrived, but not before shouting up at Emma's apartment window, his voice carrying across the parking lot. "You can't hide from me forever, Sophia. You're my wife. This is kidnapping. Emma is poisoning your mind against me." The neighbors heard. The police report documented it. And with each action Marcus took trying to control the situation, he was building the case against himself better than any lawyer could have. Over the next week, Sophia stayed at Emma's apartment while Patricia worked her magic. The protective order was approved. Marcus's lawyer reached out, initially hostile and accusatory, claiming Sophia was mentally unstable and had abandoned the marriage without cause. Then Patricia sent over the affair evidence Emma had created, and Marcus's lawyer's tone changed dramatically. Suddenly there was talk of settlement, of quick resolution, of keeping things quiet and private. "He doesn't want this going to court," Patricia explained during a conference call. "A public trial would mean the affair allegations become public record. Even if he tried to prove they were fabricated, the attempt would damage his reputation. Surgeons depend on trust. Patients don't want to be operated on by doctors whose personal lives are tabloid material. He's going to settle." She was right. Within 2 weeks of Sophia leaving, Marcus's lawyer presented a settlement offer. It wasn't generous, but it was fair. Sophia would receive half the value of their house, half their savings, spousal support for 2 years while she finished her degree, and Marcus would cover her health insurance. In exchange, she would sign a non-disclosure agreement agreeing not to discuss the reasons for their divorce publicly, and she would not pursue criminal charges for the domestic violence. "He's buying your silence," Patricia explained. "The NDA means you can't tell people about the affair or the abuse publicly. You can tell family and close friends, you can discuss it in therapy, but you can't go to the media or post about it online. Is that acceptable to you?" Sophia thought about it carefully. Part of her wanted to expose Marcus, wanted to stand on a rooftop and tell the world what he really was behind his charming surgeon facade and his expensive suits. She wanted his colleagues to know, his patients to know, everyone who thought he was such a catch to understand what it was like to be married to him. But another part of her, the part that was exhausted and traumatized and desperate for this to be over, just wanted to be free. She wanted to move forward without being tied to Marcus through a lengthy public court battle. She wanted to rebuild her life without him continuing to be a central character in it. "I'll sign it," Sophia said. "But I want additions. The NDA has to go both ways. He can't discuss me or disparage me to anyone either. And I want a specific clause that he won't contact me, my family, or any of my friends for any reason, except through our lawyers. Complete no contact." Patricia smiled. "I can absolutely make that happen. Anything else?" "One more thing," Sophia said, an idea forming. "I want it in writing that he admits to the affair with Melissa Carter as the reason for the divorce. He doesn't have to admit it publicly, but it needs to be in the settlement agreement. It protects me from him ever claiming I abandoned the marriage without cause." Emma, who was listening on speakerphone, made a surprised sound. Patricia was quiet for a moment, then laughed. "That's devious. I love it. If it's in the legal documents that he's admitting to the affair, he can never try to flip the narrative later. And he'd have to argue against his own admission, which would require explaining that the affair was fake, which would open up questions about why you'd fabricate it, which would lead to discussions of his abuse. It's a legal trap. Let me see if I can make it happen. It took another week of negotiations, but Patricia did make it happen. The final settlement agreement included a clause where Marcus admitted that his infidelity with Melissa Carter was the cause of the marriage's breakdown. Sophia knew he must have been furious about it, but his lawyer must have convinced him it was better than the alternative of a public trial. The day Sophia signed the divorce papers, 6 weeks after she had left, Emma took her out to dinner to celebrate. They went to an expensive restaurant downtown, the kind of place Sophia had never been able to go with Marcus because he always controlled where they ate, what she ordered, how she behaved. "How does it feel?" Emma asked as they studied the menu, both of them giddy with the freedom to order whatever they wanted. To be legally free from him? "Surreal," Sophia admitted. "I keep expecting him to walk through the door or to wake up and find out this was all a dream and I'm still trapped. My therapist says it's going to take time for my nervous system to understand that I'm actually safe now." "But you are safe," Emma said firmly. "The protective order is in place. The divorce is final. He's legally bound not to contact you. And if he violates any of it, he goes to jail and loses his medical license. His career means more to him than tormenting you does. You're free, Soph. Really, truly free." Sophia felt tears prick her eyes, but for once, they were happy tears, relief tears. "I couldn't have done this without you. Without your insane, illegal, completely unethical fake affair scheme. You saved my life, Em." "I'd do it again in a heartbeat," Emma said. "Though maybe next time I'll try a slightly less elaborate approach first. The wig was itchy, and those contact lenses were hell on my eyes." They both laughed, and it felt good, felt normal, in a way nothing had felt normal in years. As they ate dinner and talked about everything and nothing, Sophia felt pieces of herself starting to come back. Her sense of humor, her opinions, her ability to make decisions about what she wanted to eat without calculating whether it would anger someone. Small things. Everything. 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, Sophia enrolled at the State University to finish her engineering degree. She had lost 3 years, but she was only 28. She had time to rebuild. Her first day back on a college campus, walking into a structural engineering class, felt like coming home to a part of herself she thought was dead. The professor was explaining load-bearing calculations, and Sophia found herself understanding it immediately, her brain lighting up with the kind of problem-solving she had always loved. This was who she was supposed to be. This was the life Marcus had stolen, and now she was taking it back. Emma visited every weekend, and slowly, gradually, Sophia began to forgive her sister for the deception. She understood now that Emma had made an impossible choice in an impossible situation. She had chosen to become the villain in Sophia's story temporarily, so that Sophia could eventually become the hero of her own. That kind of love, the kind that was willing to be hated and misunderstood in service of someone's survival, was the deepest kind there was. 6 months after leaving Marcus, Sophia still had nightmares. She still flinched when men moved too quickly near her. She still had panic attacks in the grocery store when she saw someone who looked like Marcus from behind. Trauma didn't heal on a convenient timeline, but she was healing, slowly, in therapy twice a week, in the support group for domestic violence survivors she had joined, in the quiet moments when she realized she had gone an entire day without being afraid. 1 year after the divorce, Sophia aced her senior design project, a bridge design that her professor said was some of the best student work he had seen in a decade. She called Emma from the engineering building, standing outside in the spring sunshine, grinning so wide her face hurt. "I got an A, and Professor Mitchell wants to submit my design to a national competition." "I'm so proud of you," Emma said, and Sophia could hear her sister crying happy tears through the phone. "I knew you could do it. I never doubted you for a second." "Well, maybe for a second," Sophia teased. "When you were inventing fake mistresses and wearing wigs, you must have had some doubts about my decision-making. Only about your taste in husbands, Emma shot back. Your engineering skills were always solid. It's the men you needed help with. No more men for a while, Sophia said. My therapist says I need at least another year before I even think about dating. Maybe 5 years, maybe never. I'm still learning how to be just me, without defining myself through someone else. Good, Emma said firmly. You're the best version of yourself when you're just you. The rest is just decoration. That night, Sophia pulled out the old wedding photo she had kept, the one from 3 years ago that showed a younger, more naive version of herself smiling next to Marcus. She had carried it with her when she left, though she wasn't sure why. Maybe as a reminder, maybe as evidence of who she used to be. She studied the face of the woman in the photo, young and bright-eyed and completely unaware of what was coming. She wanted to reach through time and warn that woman, tell her to run, tell her that the charming surgeon would become her prison warden. But she couldn't change the past. She could only honor it by building a better future. Sophia took the photo outside and dropped it in the dumpster behind Emma's apartment building where she still lived, saving money while she finished school. She didn't need reminders of who she used to be anymore. She was writing a new story now, one where she was the protagonist instead of the victim, one where she got to choose her own ending. As she walked back inside, her phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Dinner this weekend? I promise no wigs, no fake identities, no elaborate schemes. Sophia smiled and typed back, only if you promise to always be this ride or die for me when I actually need it. The sister who's crazy enough to save me from myself. Deal, Emma replied. That's what sisters are for, to be your villain when necessary and your hero always. Sophia looked up at the evening sky, stars just beginning to appear above the city, and felt something she hadn't felt in 4 years. Real hope, solid hope, unshakable hope for a future she got to design herself. She had survived, she had escaped, and with her sister by her side, she was finally free to become whoever she wanted to be. The woman in the wedding photo was gone, dead and buried in a dumpster where she belonged. But the woman Sophia was becoming was stronger, braver, more authentic than that girl had ever been. She was an engineering student again, a survivor, a sister, a person reclaiming her own life one day at a time. And it had all started with a fake text message, a hotel room, an auburn wig, and a sister crazy enough to commit identity fraud and emotional manipulation to save a life. Sometimes love looked like sacrifice. Sometimes sacrifice looked like lies. And sometimes the biggest lie someone could tell was the truth you needed to hear to save yourself. Emma had taught Sophia that. She had shown her that sometimes the path to freedom required someone to become the villain, to be misunderstood, to risk everything, including the relationship itself. That was real love. Not the possessive, controlling, violent thing Marcus had called love, but the messy, complicated, self-sacrificing kind that said, I'd rather you hate me and be alive than love me and be dead. Sophia would never forget that lesson, and she would spend the rest of her life making sure Emma's sacrifice wasn't in vain. She would finish her degree. She would become an engineer. She would build things that lasted, that were strong, that could bear impossible weight without breaking, just like her sister had been for her, just like she was learning to be for herself. The story wasn't over. But for the first time in years, Sophia was excited to see what the next chapter would bring, because this time she was the one writing it.